Hi everybody, it's Michelle, and in this video I'm going to show you guys how I made this book right here. It is a faux Midori that is made more like a book, so I've been calling it my Book-dori, and it's the same basic concept. It has the elastic band that holds it closed, and when you open it up you just put all of your different books in, and it's all held in place with elastic. Now, I in no way take credit for the idea of this book. I did see these on YouTube, and I will put a link to that video below, the one that inspired me. And I thought it was such a great idea. I've already made several, and this one is my holiday book. So some of the supplies you're going to need to make this book are some chipboard. I use a medium weight chipboard for this. You can use a lightweight chipboard. Or if you don't have chipboard, you can use cardstock, a heavy-duty cardstock, or you can even look around your house and even use an old cereal box. Just cut it out, fit it to size, and that'll work too. You are also going to need grunge paper, and it looks like this. It is very pliable and durable, and this is what you use for the binding. It comes in a sheet, different size sheets, and this is a full-size sheet of the grunge paper. There's also grunge board, but I use the paper for this one. You're going to need some type of paper, either scrapbook paper. You can use cardstock. I used actual Christmas wrapping paper for this book because it is my holiday book. And I used just the one paper for all sides of this book since I'm only going to be using it for the month of December during the holidays. You also need elastic, and it's the elastic cord. It is round. You can use flat elastic. I think it would just be much harder to string it, and your books may not lay properly in the book if you do. I also use glue sticks and Elmer's glue. This is the key, Elmer's glue. It's what holds everything in place. To make this one, I also used Mod Podge. So I had my brush with Mod Podge and some double-sided tape, and I use score tape. You can use any type of double-sided tape, or you can just glue everything if you have a little more patience to kind of secure the glue, make sure it's staying secured down. And you're going to need some type of pick or crocodile to punch your holes. And you're going to need sandpaper or a sanding block. I use this. Or if you don't have sandpaper, you can also use a nail file or emery board. And that's just to work on these edges. And I used also ink from a stamp pad, an ink pad for stamping in two different colors for my binding on the inside and the outside. And I think that's it. I think that's pretty much all I used to make this book. So let's get started, and I will show you how I made the book. Now I'm going to do this in real time, so I don't know how that's going to go. It is not pre-done. I am filming this portion at the end because my book is finished. So when we come back, you will see me starting it from the very beginning. And here we go. So to begin my Book-dori, I've already cut out the pieces that I'm going to use. I have my 2 pieces of chipboard for the front and back cover, and my grunge paper that I have already cut to size, and I have the reinforcing piece on here that I'm gluing on right now and holding in place with paper clips while the glue dries. These measure for my book. Remember, your book may be different. Just cut it to whatever size you're going to need it. But for me, it's 8.5 by 5.5. And the middle piece is a total of 3 inches across. So I have 1.5 inches for the actual spine on the book, and then 3/4 inch on each side to flap over and secure it to the top like this. This flap over that glues onto the front and back cover. The middle piece here, the reinforcing piece, is 1.25 inches, and I left room on each side to allow for the fold on the book. And I just marked with my pen the 3/4 on each side so I know where it is I'm going to be folding it over onto the book. And I just used the Elmer's glue to glue that on there. So it's going to take a little while for that to dry. And while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to start on the front and back covers. I just took some wrapping paper that I had in my stash. And this is what I'm going to use. I'm going to cover the entire front and back, inside and out, with this paper. Now, ordinarily, I would just use my glue stick to attach the paper, but I am almost out. I don't know where my other glue sticks are, so I'm going to use my double-sided tape and my tape glider just to put it down and just do a glue stick around the edges. Oops. Use this one here. This is a glue that I bought at Hobby Lobby, and I don't know, it doesn't seem to work as well as this Crazy Art glue. Just put this around the edges to secure it. Now, remember to pay attention to what is the front and the back, and make sure you're putting things in the right direction if your paper is directional. It may not matter depending on how you cut your chipboard, but I like my edges rounded, so I do have to pay attention to what is the front and the back, and make sure to remember that this is the middle. So this is going to be the inside of my cover. Just stick this on here. This is just plain old Christmas wrap that I had left over from last year. Just stick it on. And I'm just going to flip it and cut around the edges. I would try to get it on as straight as possible because I wanted my Santas to be straight, but it may not be perfect, but that's okay. I'm only going to be using it for this month. Then I'll put it away and save it for next year. Make sure to get these edges really close in here. And down in here. Just all the way around. And that is the back and side. And I'm going to do the same thing for the front inside, and then I'm going to flip it, and this will be the outside of my book, and I will cover them all the same way. So I'm going to do that off camera, and I'll be back when I'm done. Right, so I have finished putting the paper on all sides, and now I'm going to go back and look and see if I want to switch out. If I want this to be the outside, I think I do. I want this to be the outside. So I have my rounded corners out. This is the outside of the book. It's going to go together like this with the spine across the top. Now, because I'm going to be putting this grunge paper on here and gluing it down, I want to be sure that this paper is on here very securely on this side. So I'm going to go back through and just kind of put some glue on these edges and rub it in. I might wrinkle up the paper a little bit, but that's okay. It'll kind of give it a mottled look. See that corner's coming up there. And it's going to have strain on it from the grunge paper and the binding for that hinge. And you want it to be secure. And this one, I think I'm actually going to go over the entire thing with a light layer of Mod Podge. It'll wrinkle up the paper, but that's okay. This paper is not as sturdy as scrapbook paper because it is thin wrapping paper. I'm just trying to get the excess off. Do the same thing on the other side. Just side looks more secure. Well, that corner is not good, but that's the inside corner, but let me fix that. Sometimes I feel like I'm just talking to myself when I'm doing this, but that's okay. Glue that down. Just be sure that it's nice and secure on that edge. Okay, and I'm going to let that dry, and I'm still waiting for this to dry completely. When it dries, I'm going to go ahead and ink it. I'm going to round the corners, and I will only be inking this side, which is the front. And this section here in the middle, I don't need to ink this part here. This is the part that gets glued on to here. So when this dries, I'll come back and I'll show you how I ink that, and then we'll attach it to the book. Okay, I believe this is dry enough now that I can start working with it. So I'm just going to take all my paper clips off that I was just holding this secure on there to let the glue dry so it wouldn't buckle up on me. And I'm going to ink the inside. I'm going to wait to ink the outside until after it's on there. Might be not quite as messy that way. The last time I made a book, I had ink all over my hands. It was just smearing everywhere. So I'm going to take my corner rounder first and round my corners, because I just like all of my corners rounded. You don't have to. You can keep square corners. Is it not? It's kind of thick. It doesn't want to go through. Just finish that off. Okay. So I'm just using some distress ink, and this is a cheap ink pad. Came in a Target kit that I got for $1, little stamp kit. I'm going to see if I can just try to rub. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. Let's see if I have a different ink. I only have pinks and blue and black. I'm going to try to block off the other colors with some washi tape, maybe. This is an experiment. I didn't see this coming. Just kind of wing it. Because I'm just going to smear the ink on. By rubbing it onto the grunge paper. And there we go. Hopefully this works. If not, I'll have to redo the grunge paper. That won't be fun. So I'm just going to smear it on. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, let me cover this up. I'm going to leave it like this because I still need to do the front part. I'm going to take my distress ink. And this side is not quite as messy as the other side because this one is smoother and it takes longer for the ink to dry. And of course you don't have to distress it if you don't want to. I just kind of like the look. It's kind of an antique Santa paper, so I just wanted to distress it. I will be distressing all the edges too. Once I get it glued together, I'll show you how I do that. So that's the inside. Now we are going to glue this. This is the outside cover. This is the inside facing up. So we're going to flip these around. These are the inside covers. Now I'm going to glue them on. I'm going to use my score tape and just put a line down on there. I'm just going to try to put the score tape in the center because this is not actually meant to really bind it to the book. This is to secure it long enough for the glue to really hold it. I'm going to use glue on both the other sides, but I need something really durable to hold it in place while it's drying. This stuff is the greatest. If you do any scrapbooking, you're very familiar with score tape. So we glue it or stick it down. Let me put this away. Make sure it's secure on there. You can use any kind of double-sided tape for this, or you can just be very patient and wait for your glue to dry and keep sticking it down to make sure it stays secure. Let me pull that off. Pull that off. So now I'm going to put my glue on each side. And remember, I have a line on here showing where to attach this to here at 3/4 of an inch. I just want to make sure that it's even on there. Now I'm going to attach it, line it up with my edge, with that line, push it down, and I'm going to want to come back and just keep doing that to make sure that it stays secure on there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. When I saw these books, I thought they were just fantastic. So I set up my entire planner in there now, and I love it. So I just had to make one for the holidays. Okay, this one's ready. Let's put it down on our line. Secure it. It'll take a few minutes for that glue to dry. This is basically what it looks like. This is the inside. This is now the outside. Kind of stretch that, the binding there at the hinge. That'll get more pliable with time. And the more you work it. That's why you leave that gap where I put the reinforcer so that it has room to move on the hinge. I'll let that dry for a little bit. Or you know what? Let's turn it over and ink that side. And that can all dry at the same time. Because I will need to go back and make sure to glue under here and to make sure it's glued down very well. So where's my red ink? Let's ink this up. There are a couple other things we can do too while we're waiting. These don't take too long to make. You're mostly waiting for your glue to dry. I think I want it to be a little bit redder on the outside. Okay, you know, I'm done with this. I'm going to take off my washi tape so I can put it away. That was a great idea. Worked out well. Okay, that one's done. I'm going to put some distress ink on this. Mostly around the edges. And this is kind of going to smear when I put the Mod Podge on, which is okay. It'll make it blend together more. Because this is going to take a while to dry. I found that out the hard way. Okay, that'll blend up more later. I'm done with that. Well, no, I'm not. I'm not finished with this one. I'm still going to use this. So what I do at this point is I go over the entire book with a sanding block. If you don't have sandpaper or a sanding block, you can use an emery board, a nail file, just to smooth off all the edges. And when I finish this, I'm going to use the, look at that corner is coming up. I'm going to use the distress ink all around the outside. If any other paper starts coming up at the edges, I'll secure that down with a Mod Podge when I go over the entire thing. I'm just smoothing it out to give it kind of a rough edge. Even up all the paper. Blow it. Sorry if that was loud on the camera. Let me fix this little edge here. Let's finish this one. edge is coming up. That other glue stick that I have just doesn't hold down. I need to get some more glue sticks. Okay. So we sanded that all down. I'm going to distress all the way around the outside. That edge just gives it a finished look. This is very similar to what I do with composition books when I use a black Sharpie just to go around all the edges. I like to come around and do just a slight little trim around the front side and the back side too. Please feel free to fast forward through this if you don't want to watch me doing all these edges. Almost done. On the side. Well, I think that's good. Okay, so that's done. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and put my, look at this mess. Go ahead and put my layer of Mod Podge on this side. When that dries, I'm going to do it on the inside. And then we'll cut our holes and string our elastic. So I just use regular old Mod Podge. It stores my score tape on there. This is a mess. My little one came apart and it just tangled all up. I'm just going to use a big brush and just go over with the light layer, as light as I can get it. I'll start here. See how it smears that ink? I can put more here on this part. I'm going to go ahead and do the inside of this because it's smearing and I don't want that smeared ink on my paper. So I'm going to do the inside on the grunge paper. And then I need to go clean my brush. We'll let that dry. I'm going to stand it up to let it dry. Let's make sure it gets in those cracks really good. stand it up, go clean my brush, and this dries very fast, so it shouldn't be a problem, and we'll be right back and finish the Mod Podge on the rest. I tell you what, I'm going to do that off camera. I'm going to go ahead, and when this dries, I'm going to put a light layer on the front and the back, and I'll come back when that's done and dry and show you how I poke the holes and string the elastic. Okay, I have it all covered in Mod Podge now. And I think for the next time, I know I am not going to do that unless I use Mod Podge as the base. If I use a layer of Mod Podge to glue on my paper and then go back over it, because it did make my paper kind of buckle up a little bit and wrinkle. It's starting to straighten back out now as it dries more. So maybe over time that'll get better. But it's dry enough now to where I can poke the holes and string the elastic. So I have marked where I'm going to put my holes. At the top here, I'm going to do them, this was 1.5 inches, so I'm going to leave, you know, 1/2 inch on each side and then 1/2 inch between the rows. Between the holes there. Same down here. And then I mark the center, and I mark that since it is 8.5, it's 4 1/4 in the center. This is for my center elastic that's going to hold the band to keep the book closed. Now for this one, you can use any kind of pick, or if you have a long crocodile where you can do that hole. I have this pick here that I'm going to try for this, or any kind of pick, even an ice pick from your kitchen, you can do that. So I'm going to just do this one first, go through here. Kind of take some effort. And I want it big enough to run my elastic through. I may have to get my other pick out to do that, to make the hole bigger. I have this pick here. This was my husband's, one of his mechanic tools. You can find these anywhere though, at Walmart, Harbor Freight, places like that. You can get them real cheap, a whole set of picks. That's much better. I'm going to kind of leave that. It kind of buckles out because of the nature of the grunge paper. But this is the one that I want to be easy to get through from the inside, because that's where I'm going to string it through. Okay. Now I'm going to cut these holes. I'm going to use my crocodile for that. You can do the same thing with the pick. And I'm going to use this one here, and I am going to do it at 1/4 inch, I think. Let me unlock it. Let me make sure that that's where I really want it. Yeah. Now the marks that I put on here, that's not where the holes actually are going to end up. It's just to give me a guide of where to put my crocodile to even that up. There's my holes for that side. I love this thing because it gives you a nice size hole to string the elastic, since I string so many through. Oh, that one ended up being a little bit too high, but there's not really anything I can do about that right now. It's just going to be a little uneven. That's okay. That's what happens. We're doing this in real time, people. Okay, so we're ready to string. And I'm just going to use white for this one. I'm going to color the outside band red, I think, with my Sharpie. I'm only going to put 4 elastics on here. On my other book I have 6. I don't need all 6, so I have 4 books that I will be putting in here, so I'm going to run 4. I'm trying to get a piece long enough because I'm not sure exactly how much I'm going to need. I'm going to kind of do a rough estimate. From there to there, to there, down. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll give myself a little extra. I think that's right. We'll find out. Put that to the side. I start this on the bottom. Just pull that through. Then I start running the long end just back and forth through there. Kind of pull it tight. What I like about this grunge board is it kind of holds your elastic in place, so where it'll give you the tension that you need. I'm sorry, my phone is ringing in the background. Somebody's really trying to call me today. That's my fax machine, so I'm not worried about it. Pull it. There. So here are my 4, and I'm going to tie it here. As tight as I can get it, but not too tight. You don't want too much pressure on your notebooks. And there are my 4 elastics for inside the book. I'm going to cut this. Well, I cut it a little smaller because this one will actually be inside of a book. Okay, and let's see how it looks on the outside. See that? I just wish I didn't cut that one crooked, but that's okay. So now, that's not going to be long enough. I'm going to do the outside band. And I just take my elastic and a measure, kind of secure that tightly, tie my knot so I know that that's a good size right there. Snap it. That's what I'm going to be using. Now I'm going to just run this through the inside hole like this. There we go. Pull it through. Make this shorter. And there is your outside band. And there we go. There is my Santa holiday book dory. I'm just going to take a Sharpie real quick. And where are my Sharpies? They're there. I think I'm going to do black. And just kind of color the elastic. And you do this for the whole thing. It will get on your hands. If you don't want to get your hands dirty, make sure you wear your gloves. Takes a little bit of time. Of course, I could have used black elastic, but I didn't. You can also use dye. I could have inked these with the ink pad. Now this is elastic cord. I believe it's 1 millimeter. It didn't have the size on there, but I'm pretty sure it's 1 millimeter. And it works very well. You could use a thinner elastic, but I have some pretty heavy books, and I didn't want to use thinner elastic. You could also use thicker elastic, but you'll need to be sure that you have something very sturdy to hold that in place. This is the grunge paper. They do make grunge board also that you can use for a binding on the book. I haven't used the grunge board for this, so I'm not sure how that works out. How bendable it is. I do have some, but I haven't used it. Oops, I'm off camera. Sorry about that. I'm still just coloring this. There are some rainbow colored elastics and stuff that you can get at Michael's too, or Hobby Lobby. You look around if you want to make a more decorative book. You have some other options. This is a little bit of a pain, but that's okay. Just think of all the things you can do with these books, though. All the things that you can store. I know I'm going to make several to keep all of my archived books. Then I will just keep this one separately, just to use like for the month of December, for the holidays, or probably by next year I'll be wanting to make a different one, so we'll see. I just love the idea of these books. Alright, well that's good enough for now. Okay, so let me get my other book out. And I am going to slip my things into this book and show you how it looks all finished. I do have 4 books. So I'll start with the first one. Slip that in. I'm going to do a separate setup video to show you guys how I've set up all of my books in here. Wasn't sure if I was going to be using this system, but I'm pretty sure that I am now. I'm very pleased with it. These books right here, the reason why these are made a little bit larger than just the Moleskine Cahier size, because these are cheap composition books that I purchased at Walmart, and they are a little bit wider than the Cahiers. They're a little shorter, but they're wider, so I needed more width on the book. And there's all my books. All set up in there for my holiday binder. And there we go. The great thing about these is the Midoris are lovely, but with this you have a very hard surface to work on, to write on, and it is truly more like a book, not just like a leather cover. It's like your own little book that you put together, anything and everything that you want to put in there. Now you can stuff this full. You can add as many books as you want. All you have to do is measure, stack your books up, and measure how large you need your spine to be, and then just make your spine that large and allow for 3/4 of an inch on each side, and just cut your paper that size, and you can make this as big as you want, or you can make it thinner if you like, if you don't need as much as I do in here. So that is the book. If you guys have any questions about this, just put it in the comments section below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. You guys have a great day, and I will see you next time.